Carla Johnson woke up early that cold morning in Chicago. The sun had barely risen, and the city was still shrouded in a thick fog, as if trying to hide the secrets and pains that accumulated on its streets. Wrapped in a tattered blanket she had found weeks earlier near an alley, Carla got up from her usual spot under the awning of an abandoned store on the south side. She looked around, noting the familiar figures of other homeless people starting to stir. It was a community invisible to most, but for Carla, these people were the closest thing she had to family. As she walked toward a small community kitchen that offered a free breakfast, Carla crossed paths with Terry, a middle-aged man with whom she had developed a certain friendship over the years. "Good morning, Carla. Did you sleep well?" Terry asked, his voice rough from so many years on the streets. "If you can call it sleep," Carla replied with a faint smile. "But I'm alive, and that's something." Terry nodded, well aware of the feeling of merely surviving. "They've got pancakes at the kitchen today. Better than yesterday's stale bread." "I'll see if I can grab some before they run out," Carla said, trying to keep her spirits up. "What about you? What are you up to today?" "Oh, I'll see if I can make a few bucks downtown. Maybe I'll find someone generous," Terry replied, digging in his pockets for some change. Carla knew that for people like her and Terry, daily survival was a constant struggle. Every penny mattered. Every meal was a small victory. But there were days when that struggle felt heavier, when memories of a different life haunted her. She used to have a home, a job, friends. It all seemed to belong to someone else now, someone she could barely recognize. After a quick, warm meal, Carla walked through the busy streets of Chicago, staying on the fringes of the hurried crowds. She often wondered if anyone truly noticed her, or if everyone just pretended she didn't exist. Her eyes fixed on a store window where she used to shop years ago, before everything fell apart. Winter was approaching, and Carla knew she needed to prepare. Shelters would become crowded, and the streets would become even harsher. She pulled the hood of her tattered coat up, trying to shield herself from the biting wind, and continued her aimless walk. Passing by a mother and her young child who were laughing together while looking at Christmas decorations in a store, Carla felt a pang in her heart. She tried to push away the sadness, but memories of when her own life had been like that surfaced, and it was impossible to ignore. "God, how did I end up here?" she murmured to herself, staring up at the gray sky as if waiting for an answer. But the silence that followed only reinforced the loneliness she felt. That was how Carla spent her days, amidst a crowd, yet always alone, carrying the weight of a life that seemed to have been stolen from her. She knew she had to keep moving forward, even without knowing where to go, because on the streets of Chicago, the only constant was the need to keep going. It was a typical afternoon in Chicago, with heavy traffic and bustling streets. Carla was sitting on a park bench, watching the children play in the playground. She liked spending time there, observing the life around her. The sounds of laughter, the creaking swings, everything brought her a strange sense of comfort, even if only for a few moments. As she watched, Carla noticed a black SUV speeding down the street next to the park. Something didn't seem right. The car was going too fast and suddenly started to lose control, skidding toward the playground. Carla tensed, her eyes locked on a little boy with blonde, curly hair who was a bit apart from the others, playing alone with a toy car. The SUV was dangerously close. Without thinking twice, Carla jumped off the bench and ran toward the boy. Her heart was pounding, each second feeling like it was dragging. She could barely hear anything except the roar of the engine and her own racing heartbeat. "Peter! Peter, get out of the way!" she shouted desperately, but the boy was so absorbed in his play that he didn't hear her. As she reached just a few feet from him, Carla threw herself at the boy, pulling him out of harm's way, just as the car flew past where he had been. They tumbled to the ground, but they were safe. The SUV crashed into a tree, stopping with a loud bang. Carla, still breathless and with her heart racing, slowly got up, holding Peter in her arms. The little boy was in shock but unharmed. Tears began to stream down his confused face. "Are you okay, sweetheart? Did you get hurt?" Carla asked, her voice still trembling as she stroked his hair, trying to calm him. Before the boy could respond, a man ran toward them. It was David Miller, Peter's father, with a pale face and a look of desperation. He had seen everything from a distance while on the phone, and the fear of losing his son made him run like never before. "Peter! Oh my God, Peter!" David cried, kneeling beside Carla and his son. "Are you okay, my boy? Did you get hurt?" Peter sobbed and clung to his father. "I'm okay. Annie saved me." David looked at Carla, his eyes filled with gratitude and astonishment. You saved my son's life. I don't even know how to thank you." Carla, still feeling the impact of what had just happened, shook her head. "I just did what anyone would do. I couldn't let anything happen to him." "Anyone?" David repeated, clearly moved. "I don't know if anyone would have rushed to save a stranger's child, putting their own life at risk." "Please, tell me your name." "Carla," she replied, a bit flustered by the intensity of the moment. "My name is Carla." David looked at Carla with a mix of recognition and admiration. "Carla, you have no idea what you've just done for me. You saved the most precious thing I have in this world." He stood up and extended his hand to help her up as well. "Please, I want to help you. Anything you need, just tell me." Carla hesitated, not used to receiving offers of help. I don't know what to say. I'm just glad he's okay." David, still holding her hand, insisted. "Please, Carla, let me do something for you. Let's get out of here, find a place for you to rest, maybe get something to eat. You deserve that at the very least." Carla looked at David and then at Peter, who was still recovering from the scare, and finally nodded. "All right. Maybe a hot meal wouldn't be such a bad idea." David smiled, relieved she had agreed. "Let's go. I know a place around here. And please, Carla, you're going to let me help you. This isn't a request. It's a debt I owe you." As they walked away from the park together, David holding Peter's hand firmly and Carla beside them, she didn't know that this moment would change her life forever. But something inside her told her that, for the first time in a long while, something good was about to happen. David Miller couldn't take his eyes off Carla as they walked toward the restaurant. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. He had just witnessed a stranger, a woman clearly facing hardship, save his son's life. David, a man accustomed to making quick decisions in the business world, was now in a situation where none of his business skills could help him express what he felt. Peter, still a bit shaken, held tightly to his father's hand, but occasionally looked at Carla with curiosity and a sparkle of admiration in his young eyes. When they arrived at the restaurant, a small and cozy bistro in downtown Chicago, David requested a table for 3. The waitstaff recognized him immediately and led them to a table in a more private corner, away from the lunchtime rush. "Please make yourselves comfortable. I'll order whatever you'd like," David said, pulling out a chair for Carla before sitting next to Peter. "Carla, what do you like to eat?" Carla hesitated, feeling a bit out of place in the elegant setting. I don't know. Anything is fine with me." David smiled, noticing her discomfort. "They have an excellent vegetable soup here. And maybe a sandwich?" "Peter, what would you like, champ?" Peter, still holding the toy car he nearly lost in the accident, looked at his father and then at Carla. "I want the same thing as Annie, Carla," he said with a small, shy smile. David nodded. "All right then, we'll do that." He placed the order with the waiter, and when the waiter walked away, he turned back to Carla. "Carla, I really don't know how to thank you for saving Peter's life. This goes beyond anything I've ever experienced. You didn't just save my son. You gave me the chance to keep being a father." Carla looked at David, her eyes filled with a mix of humility and surprise. "I just did what needed to be done. Anyone would have done the same in my situation." David shook his head firmly. "You say that, but I know not everyone would have had the courage to do what you did. And I want to know more about you. I need to understand how I can help you. Where do you live? How are you managing?" Carla averted her gaze for a moment, struggling with the urge to hide the truth. But after everything that had happened, it felt wrong not to be honest. I live on the streets, David. I've been homeless for a few years now. Things just didn't work out for me. And since then, I've been surviving as best as I can," she confessed, feeling the weight of the words as she spoke them. David was silent for a moment, absorbing that revelation. He would never have imagined that the woman in front of him, who had shown so much strength and courage, was facing such hardship. His heart ached thinking about what she must have gone through. "I can't accept this," he said finally, with a determination Carla hadn't expected. "You did something incredible today, and I refuse to let you go back to that situation. Please, Carla, let me help you." Carla looked at him, surprised by the intensity in his voice. I don't know what to say. I'm not used to receiving this kind of help, and I don't want to be a burden to anyone." "Burden?" David repeated, shaking his head. "You're not a burden, Carla. You saved my son's life. That says a lot about who you are, and I'm not going to just let you go back to the streets. I want to offer you a safe place to stay, a chance to start over." Carla felt tears welling up, but she held them back. It was hard to believe that someone would be willing to do so much for her. "David, it's more than I ever hoped for. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me," David said, placing his hand over hers. "You've already done more than enough. Now please let me do something for you. Consider this a chance to start over, not just for you but for me as well. I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I didn't try to help." Carla looked at him, and then at Peter, who was now smiling at her, clearly starting to feel more at ease. Something inside her calmed, a small spark of hope that she barely remembered how to feel. "Okay," she said softly. "I accept your help, David." "Thank you." David smiled, feeling an immense sense of relief. "This is just the beginning, Carla. We're going to do this together. You'll see, everything is going to get better." As they waited for their food, the surroundings felt a little less oppressive. And for the first time in a long while, Carla felt that maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for a better future. After the meal, David insisted on taking Carla to a nearby hotel. He knew she needed a safe place to stay while he figured out what to do next. The hotel was modest but comfortable, and Carla couldn't remember the last time she had slept in a real bed. David handed Carla the key to her room. "Here you go. You can stay here as long as you need while we sort things out. And if you need anything at all, don't hesitate to call me." Carla looked at the key, still surprised by David's generosity. I don't know how to thank you for this. It's so much for me. I'm not used to people caring this much." David smiled. "Don't worry about it, Carla. You did something incredible for me and my son. This is the least I can do for you. Besides, everyone deserves a chance to start over." Carla nodded, still a bit overwhelmed by everything happening. "I don't know what the future holds, but thank you. Really." David placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll take it one step at a time. Tomorrow, we can talk more about how I can help you get out of this situation. I want you to know you're not alone." Later in her hotel room, Carla sat on the bed, looking around. The room was simple, with white walls, a comfortable bed, and a small lamp by the side. For someone who had spent years on the streets, it was a real luxury. She ran her hand over the soft bedspread, hardly believing it was real. With a deep sigh, Carla lay down on the bed and stared at the ceiling. The adrenaline of the day was still coursing through her veins, but exhaustion was starting to take over. She closed her eyes and, for the first time in a long time, felt a sense of security. The world outside was still harsh and unpredictable, but at that moment, she was safe. And more than that, she had hope. The next morning, David returned to the hotel early. Carla was already awake, having coffee at a small table near the window. When he walked in, she stood up immediately, unsure of how to act. "Good morning," David said with a warm smile. "Did you sleep well?" Carla smiled shyly. "Yes, very well. I don't think I've ever appreciated a bed so much." David laughed. "I can imagine. Well, I was thinking, if you're ready, we can start planning the next steps. I want to help you find a job, something that can give you stability." Carla looked at him, a bit surprised. "You're already doing so much for me, David. I don't know if I deserve all of this." "You do deserve it, Carla," he replied seriously. "You're a good, brave person, and I believe everyone deserves a second chance. Besides, I know a capable person when I see one. I have a company, and, well, I'd like to offer you a position there. It's an administrative job, something simple to start, but I think it would be a good beginning for you." Carla blinked, trying to process what he had just said. "A job? At your company?" "Yes," David nodded. "I believe you'll do very well. And besides, This will give you an opportunity to rebuild yourself, to get back on your feet. She hesitated, still feeling unsettled by the offer. I don't know what to say. I'm out of practice, without recent experience. David raised his hand, gently interrupting her. That doesn't matter. I believe in you, Carla. You just need a chance, and I'm here to give you that opportunity. Carla felt a warmth spreading inside her. After so many years of struggle, someone finally believed in her. Someone was willing to give her a new chance at life. David, I accept. I accept the job. And thank you from the bottom of my heart. I promise I'll do my best. David smiled, relieved. I know you will. And don't worry, we'll do this together. I'll help you adjust, and before you know it, you'll be moving forward with your life. As they discussed the details of the new job, Carla felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The streets of Chicago were still out there, full of challenges and uncertainties. But now, for the first time in a long while, she had a way out. And that, to her, was a beginning more valuable than anything else. Carla woke up early the next day, feeling a mix of nervousness and excitement. It was her first day at the new job, and she wanted to make a good impression. Dressed in new clothes David had provided, she looked at herself in the hotel room mirror. The reflection she saw was different from what she was used to. A woman who, despite everything, seemed ready for a new beginning. As she headed downstairs to the lobby, she found David waiting for her. He was impeccably dressed, as always, with a welcoming smile on his face. "Good morning, Carla," he greeted, noticing her appearance. "You look great. Ready for the big day?" Carla smiled nervously. "I am, but I must admit I'm a bit anxious. It's been a long time since I worked in an office." David nodded, understanding. "I get it, but don't worry. We'll take it slow, and you'll have all the support you need. Today will be more of an introduction, so you can get familiar with the environment and the team." They left the hotel and got into David's car, which took them to the company headquarters. It was a modern, impressive building in downtown Chicago, with large glass windows reflecting the blue sky of that morning. Carla looked at the building with admiration, trying to imagine what it would be like to work there. Upon entering the building, they were greeted by the receptionist, who smiled at David with evident respect. "Good morning, Mr. Miller," she said, then directed a warm look at Carla. "Good morning, ma'am. Welcome." "Good morning," Carla replied, trying to hide the nervousness in her voice. David led Carla through the elegant, light-filled corridors of the company, stopping in front of a conference room where some employees were already gathered. He opened the door and gestured for Carla to enter. "Good morning, everyone," David said, drawing everyone's attention. "This is Carla Johnson. She's going to join us in the administrative team. I hope you'll make her feel welcome and help her with whatever she needs." The employees greeted her with smiles and nods. One of them, a middle-aged woman with a kind demeanor, approached and extended her hand. Carla, I'm Susan, head of the administrative team. We're glad to have you with us. If you need anything, just let me know." Carla shook Susan's hand, feeling a bit more at ease. "Thank you, Susan. It's a pleasure to be here." After the introductions, David turned to Carla. "I'll leave you with Susan now, Carla. She'll show you around and help you get settled. If you need me, I'll be in my office." "Thank you, David," Carla said with a sincere smile. "I'll do my best." David nodded and left the room, leaving Carla in Susan's care. "Let's go, Carla," Susan said, leading her to a workspace. "This is where you'll be. We have a few simple tasks to start with, just to get you familiar with the system. And of course, if you have any questions, I'm here to help." Carla sat at the desk and looked around. The workspace was organized with a new computer, office supplies, and a small plant in the corner. It was a welcoming environment, and she began to feel a little more confident. "So, where do we start?" Carla asked, trying to hide her anxiety. Susan smiled, seeing Carla's effort. "We'll start with something easy. Here are some reports that need to be organized and entered into the system. I'll show you how to do it, and then you can try on your own." As Susan explained, Carla paid close attention to every detail. She was determined to do everything right, to prove to herself and David that she deserved this opportunity. The first hours passed at a calm pace, and gradually, Carla began to feel more comfortable with the tasks. During lunch break, Carla joined Susan and other colleagues in the company cafeteria. It was a spacious area with an incredible view of the city. As they ate, Carla listened to the conversations around her, still a bit shy about fully engaging, but grateful to be there. "So, Carla," Susan asked, breaking the silence, "how's it going so far? Any questions?" Carla shook her head. "So far, so good. I'm just trying to get back into the rhythm. But it's been better than I expected. Thank you for being so patient with me." "No need to thank me," Susan replied. "We've all had our first day. You'll do great. I'm sure of it." Carla smiled, feeling a wave of relief and gratitude. "Thank you, Susan. I'm really happy to be here." When the workday finally came to an end, Carla was exhausted but satisfied. It was a good kind of tired, the kind that comes from a day of honest work. As she left the building, she found David waiting for her outside. "So, how was your first day?" he asked with a curious smile. Carla stopped beside him, looking at the sky beginning to turn orange with the setting sun. "It was good. Exhausting, but good. I'm very grateful, David. I don't know what I would have done without you." David shook his head, smiling. "You don't need to thank me, Carla. I'm just happy to see you doing so well. And this is just the beginning. We'll keep working together, and everything will fall into place." Carla looked at him, feeling a surge of emotion. "I believe that. And for the first time in a long time, I feel optimistic." As they walked to the car together, Carla felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. She knew there was still a long road ahead, but at that moment, she was grateful for every step she was taking in the right direction. As the days passed, Carla began to feel more at ease in her new job. She adapted quickly to the work, learning the tasks and earning the trust of her colleagues. However, even with all the progress she was making, there was a part of Carla that remained tied to the past, to the painful memories she tried to forget. One afternoon, after work, David invited Carla for coffee at a small bakery near the office. They sat at a table by the window, where the soft late-afternoon light created a cozy atmosphere. "Carla," David began after a moment of silence, "I know you're adapting well to the job, and I'm really impressed with your dedication. But I wanted to talk to you about something a bit more personal, if you don't mind." Carla, surprised by the change in tone, looked at him with curiosity. "Sure, David. What's on your mind?" David took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "I don't want to pressure you, but since I met you, I've been thinking about what brought you here to the point where you were living on the streets. I don't want to be intrusive, but if you feel comfortable, I'd like to hear your story." Carla hesitated. She had always tried to keep her past buried, but there was something about David, his genuine kindness, that made her feel it might finally be safe to share. "It's a long story," she began, her voice soft and a bit hesitant. "But I think it's time to tell it. Maybe it's a way to start letting it all go." David nodded, encouraging her to continue. "I wasn't born in Chicago," Carla started. "I grew up in Detroit in a modest family. My parents always worked hard, but we never had much. Even so, we had love and support for each other. When I was younger, I dreamed of becoming a teacher. I even started college, but then my mother got sick, and I had to drop out to take care of her." Carla paused, struggling against the emotions that were starting to surface. "My mother didn't make it, and after she was gone, everything fell apart. My father, already shaken, fell into depression and lost his job. I tried to take care of him and work at the same time, but the pressure was too much. One day, he just couldn't take it anymore, and he was gone too." David listened in silence, absorbing each word. He could see the weight of those memories in Carla's eyes. "After that, I was alone. I tried to keep going, but it was tough. I lost the house we were living in because I couldn't pay the mortgage. I ended up on the streets with no family, no friends. That's how I ended up in Chicago, trying to start over, but I could never find a way. Until now." David felt a mix of sadness and admiration for Carla. She had been through so much, and yet here she was, strong and determined to rebuild her life. "Carla," he said gently, I'm so sorry for everything you've been through. No one should have to endure so much. But I want you to know that you're not alone anymore. You have a job, a new opportunity, and people who care about you." Carla smiled, tears starting to fall from her eyes. "I know, David, and I'm so grateful for that. It's hard to believe I'm really getting out of this cycle of suffering. David reached out and took her hand firmly. You deserve this chance, Carla, and I'm here to help you every step of the way. Carla looked at him, feeling a deep connection and gratitude. Thank you, David, for everything. I don't know what I would have done without you. David squeezed her hand, conveying the certainty that she no longer had to face her problems alone. You're a strong woman, Carla, and with time, you'll realize that you can overcome anything. As they continued to talk, Carla felt a sense of relief she hadn't felt in a long time. By sharing her story, she realized she was beginning to heal the wounds of her past. The pain was still there, but now she had someone to count on, someone who believed in her. And that meant everything to Carla. At the end of that conversation, Carla left the bakery with a slightly lighter heart, knowing that for the first time in years, she had a future to look forward to with hope. As the days went by, Carla began to feel more integrated into the company. The work was going well, and she was starting to gain confidence in her skills. But more than that, she began to build genuine relationships with her colleagues, especially with Susan, who quickly became a friend and mentor to her. One afternoon, after work, Susan invited Carla to dinner at her home. It would be great to get to know you better outside the office, Susan said with a warm smile. How about coming over for dinner at my place tonight? Nothing too elaborate, just a meal between friends. Carla hesitated for a moment. She wasn't used to being invited to someone's home, but Susan's invitation felt genuine and welcoming. I'd love to, Susan, she replied with a shy smile. Thank you for the invite. That evening, Carla arrived at Susan's home, a cozy house in a quiet neighborhood. Susan welcomed her with open arms, and soon they were sitting at the table with plates of homemade food in front of them. So, Carla, Susan said while serving dinner, how are you feeling at the company? Is everything going well? Carla picked up her fork, thinking for a moment before answering. Everything's going well, Susan. I'm enjoying the work and learning a lot. But, to be honest, I'm still adjusting. Sometimes it feels like I'm still dreaming, as if all of this could disappear at any moment. Susan nodded, understanding. I get it. Going through such a big change in such a short time can be overwhelming. But you've been doing a great job, and we're all happy to have you here. Thank you, Susan, Carla said, touched by her friend's words. I really appreciate all the support you've given me. It's nice to have someone to trust. Susan smiled. You don't need to thank me, Carla. You deserve this opportunity. And besides, I see a lot of potential in you. Not just at work, but as a person. You're strong, resilient, and you have a huge heart. Carla felt a wave of emotion upon hearing that. I never thought of myself that way, she confessed. I've always been so focused on surviving, just getting through another day. Susan looked at her with tenderness. And now you have the chance to do more than just survive, Carla. You can live, and you don't have to do it alone. I'm here, and David is too. We care about you. They continued talking during dinner, sharing stories and laughing about little things. For Carla, it was something new and precious, a simple evening but full of meaning, where she could relax and be herself without fear of judgment. When dinner was over, Susan walked her to the door. It was great having you here tonight, Carla, Susan said, hugging her. I hope we can do this again soon. I hope so too, Susan, Carla replied, returning the hug. Thank you for everything. Tonight meant a lot to me. As she walked back to the hotel, Carla reflected on how much her life had changed in such a short time. Just a few weeks ago, she had been alone, struggling to survive on the streets of Chicago. Now, she had a job, friends who cared about her, and above all, hope. When she reached the hotel, Carla threw herself onto the bed and stared at the ceiling, a peaceful smile on her face. For the first time in a long while, she felt part of something, connected to people who truly cared. And that gave her the strength to keep moving forward, knowing she was no longer alone. As time went on, Carla began to feel more comfortable in her new routine. However, working at David's company wasn't always easy. As Carla delved deeper into her responsibilities, she started facing challenges that tested her determination and skills. One morning, as she arrived at the office, Carla found David in his office with a serious expression on his face. He was staring intently at a report on his computer screen. Good morning, David, Carla said, trying to hide the apprehension she felt seeing his serious demeanor. David looked up, offering a tired smile. "Good morning, Carla. Please come in." Carla entered the office and closed the door behind her. "Is something wrong?" David sighed and gestured for her to sit. "We have an important project that needs to be completed by the end of the week. It's a proposal for a new client, and if we secure this contract, it will be a major step for the company. I know you're still adjusting, but I'd like you to take responsibility for part of this project." Carla felt a mix of excitement and fear. "I'm honored by the trust, David. But are you sure I'm ready for something this big? I don't want to let you down." David smiled encouragingly. "Carla, I believe in you. I've seen how hard you've been working and how you've grown since you started. I know it's a challenge, but that's how we learn and grow. And I'll be here to support you if you need it." Carla took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves. "Okay, I'll do my best." David went over the project details with Carla, explaining what was expected of her. Throughout the day, she immersed herself in the work, reviewing documents, doing calculations, and preparing the presentation that would be delivered to the client. Time seemed to fly, and the more she progressed, the more she realized how crucial this project was. By late afternoon, Susan stopped by her desk. "Carla, how's the project going?" Carla looked up, tired but determined. "It's going well, Susan. It's challenging, but I'm doing my best to keep up." Susan smiled, sensing the weight of the responsibility Carla was carrying. "I know it's tough, but remember, you don't have to do it all on your own. If you need help, I'm here. And so is David. We're all on the same team." Carla nodded, feeling a bit more at ease. "Thanks, Susan. I just don't want to let anyone down." Susan leaned in and touched Carla's shoulder gently. "You're not going to let anyone down, Carla. You're capable and dedicated. Even if there are obstacles, the important thing is to keep moving forward." Carla smiled, appreciating Susan's support. "You're right. I'll keep doing my best." The following days were intense, with Carla working long hours to ensure everything was perfect. She faced a few setbacks along the way, moments when she doubted herself and questioned her abilities. But whenever this happened, she remembered David and Susan's words, which motivated her to push through. Finally, the day of the presentation arrived. Carla was nervous but felt prepared. She reviewed the proposal one last time before entering the conference room, where David was already waiting with other team members. "Carla, are you ready?" David asked, noticing the tension on her face. She took a deep breath and nodded. "Yes, I'm ready." David smiled. "Great. Remember, you've worked hard for this. Trust yourself." The meeting began, and Carla presented the proposal with confidence, explaining each detail clearly. As she spoke, she realized that all the preparation had been worth it. The clients asked questions, and she answered firmly, demonstrating her knowledge and the seriousness with which she had handled the project. By the end of the meeting, the clients seemed impressed, and David looked visibly pleased. When the clients left, he turned to Carla with a proud smile. "You did an excellent job, Carla. I'm really impressed." Carla felt an immense sense of relief and smiled back. "Thank you, David. I was so nervous, but I'm glad I managed to pull it off." "I knew you could do it," David said confidently. "Now, we just need to wait for their response, but regardless, you did an amazing job." As Carla walked back to her desk, she felt exhausted but satisfied. She knew she had faced a major challenge and come out victorious. More than that, she realized that even when things seemed tough, she was capable of overcoming them. When she got home that night, Carla threw herself onto the bed and smiled, reflecting on everything she had achieved. She was gradually building a new life, one she could be proud of. And at that moment, she felt closer than ever to leaving the past behind and embracing the future she had longed for. After the successful presentation, Carla began to feel more secure in her position at the company. She continued to learn and grow, earning the admiration of David, Susan, and her other colleagues. However, something unexpected happened that reminded her of a part of her past she had hoped to keep buried. It was a sunny afternoon when Carla decided to go out for lunch at a small cafe near the office. She chose an outdoor table and sat down, enjoying the warm sun as she waited for her order. She was leafing through a report when she heard a familiar voice next to her. "Carla, is that you?" She looked up quickly, and her heart nearly stopped when she recognized the person standing beside her table. It was Lisa, an old college friend from Detroit, someone she hadn't seen in years. "Lisa," Carla responded, surprised and a bit nervous. "What are you doing here?" Lisa smiled and pulled up a chair to sit down. "I moved to Chicago a few years ago. I'm working at a consulting firm here in the city. But, oh my God, Carla, I can't believe it's you. It's been so long." Carla forced a smile, still processing the unexpected reunion. "Yes, it has been a long time. I didn't know you were in Chicago. I didn't know you were here either," Lisa replied, still smiling. "You look great, Carla. What have you been up to? How's your life?" Carla hesitated, recalling the tough times she had faced since leaving Detroit. She didn't want to delve into details, especially with someone she hadn't seen in so long. "Oh, a lot has happened since college. I've had some ups and downs, but now I'm working at a company nearby." Lisa seemed curious, but before she could ask more questions, the waitress brought Carla's order. She took the opportunity to change the subject. "And you, Lisa? How's everything going with you?" Lisa started talking about her career, her achievements, and how happy she was with her life in Chicago. As Lisa spoke, Carla listened, but her mind was racing. Seeing Lisa had brought back memories of a time when she had dreams and hopes before life had knocked her down. It was a painful contrast to the reality she had lived. After a while, Lisa stopped talking and looked at Carla with a friendly smile. Carla, I always knew you'd do great things. Even in college, you were determined and bright. I'm glad you found a path here in Chicago." Carla smiled, but her heart was heavy. "Thanks, Lisa. It was nice to see you and know you're doing well." They said their goodbyes, and Lisa went back to work. Carla sat for a few more minutes, reflecting on the encounter. The memory of her former life, of what could have been, weighed heavily on her heart. But at the same time, she knew she was in a new chapter of her life, one where she was building something with her own hands, despite everything she had been through. That night, back at the hotel, Carla was restless. The memories triggered by the encounter with Lisa were troubling her. She decided to call Susan, who quickly sensed that something was wrong. "Carla, what's going on?" "You sound worried," Susan asked gently. "I ran into an old college friend today," Carla began, trying to organize her thoughts. "It was strange. She seemed so happy and fulfilled, and I felt out of place, like I didn't belong in this world I'm in now." Susan listened attentively before responding. "Carla, it's normal to feel that way, especially after everything you've been through. But remember, you're where you are because of your own merit. You've worked hard to get here. The past is part of who you are, but it doesn't define your future." Carla felt a wave of relief as she heard Susan's words. "I know, Susan, but it's hard not to think about what could have been, what I left behind." "I understand," Susan replied empathetically. "But you're a strong person, Carla. Look at what you've already achieved. What matters is what you're building now, not what happened before." Carla was silent for a moment, letting Susan's words sink in. "Thank you, Susan. You're right. I think I need to let the past rest and focus on the present." "Exactly," Susan said encouragingly. "You have a bright future ahead of you, Carla. And I'll be here, by your side, to support you every step of the way." After hanging up, Carla felt calmer. The conversation with Susan helped her put things into perspective. She decided that, despite the memories and the difficulties of the past, she was determined to move forward, building the life she had always wanted, a life she could be proud of. With this renewed determination, Carla closed her eyes, ready to face the next day with confidence. Weeks went by, and Carla's life continued to stabilize. She was doing well at work and starting to make plans for the future. David's company had received positive feedback from the client, and the contract was successfully closed, thanks to Carla's and the team's efforts. David was particularly proud of her. One morning, as Carla was at her desk, David entered the room with a concerned look. "Carla, do you have a moment to talk?" Carla looked up, noting the seriousness in David's tone. "Sure, David. What's going on?" David closed the door and sat in the chair next to Carla's desk. "We have a bit of a complicated situation. One of our major clients, Green Tech, is facing a crisis with one of their key projects. They need a consulting team to help resolve the issue quickly." Carla frowned, anticipating what was coming. And what does this have to do with me? David smiled encouragingly. They specifically requested you. Our company has a lot of trust in you, and they believe you can make a difference in solving this problem. Carla was surprised. That's a huge challenge. Am I ready for this? David nodded. I know it's a big step, but I trust in your abilities. And you won't be alone. There will be a dedicated team to assist. The important thing is that they need someone with your vision and dedication. Carla thought for a moment, feeling both the pressure and excitement. I'm ready for the challenge, David. I'll give it my best. David smiled, satisfied with her response. Great. I'll send you all the details of the project. The initial meeting with the Green Tech team is scheduled for tomorrow. Prepare for a presentation and a detailed analysis of the situation. The night before the meeting was hectic for Carla. She spent hours reviewing documents, preparing notes, and analyzing the details of the Green Tech project. The pressure was high, but Carla's determination was even higher. The next day, Carla and the team met with the Green Tech representatives. The conference room was filled with executives and engineers, all eager to hear the consulting team's proposals. Carla walked into the room, impeccably dressed, with an air of confidence. Good morning, everyone, Carla began with a professional smile. I'm here to discuss the issues you're facing and present some solutions that we believe will be effective. One of the Green Tech executives, Mark Reynolds, raised his hand. To start, we'd like to hear your analysis of the current situation. What have you identified so far? Carla gestured to the projection screen behind her, where a detailed presentation was displayed. We've identified 3 main areas that need urgent attention. Failures in the supply chain, as Carla explained. She noted the tension in the room. But as she presented her solutions, including a plan to restructure the supply chain and a new communication system, she began to see signs of relief on the executives' faces. Mark Reynolds looked at Carla with an approving expression. You have some very good solutions here, Carla. How do you propose we implement these changes without causing further disruptions? Carla continued with the presentation, explaining a detailed timeline and strategies to minimize impact during the transition. The discussion flowed well, and Carla noticed that she was gaining the confidence of the Green Tech representatives. After the meeting, Carla retreated to a quiet corner to review the feedback she had received. David approached her with a satisfied smile. You did an excellent job, Carla, David said. The feedback was positive, and the Green Tech team is confident in following your recommendations. Carla smiled, feeling relieved and exhausted. Thank you, David. It was a challenge, but I'm happy with the outcome. David put a hand on her shoulder in a supportive gesture. You exceeded expectations as always. Now, we need to work on implementing the solutions. And remember, you have a solid team by your side. Carla spent the rest of the afternoon fine-tuning the action plan and working with the team to begin implementing the changes. Despite the fatigue, she felt a sense of accomplishment. She was proving to herself that she could tackle complex challenges and make a difference. By the end of the day, Carla went home, reflecting on the progress she had made and the future she was building. She was far from where she had started, and each challenge faced was a testament to her strength and determination. As she prepared for bed, Carla felt a deep sense of pride and gratitude. She knew the road ahead was still long, but she was ready to travel it, step by step, with courage and hope. Looking toward the future, she saw not only challenges but also opportunities to grow and thrive. The implementation of the solutions for Green Tech was proceeding as planned, and the company was beginning to see significant improvements in its processes. Carla was proud of the progress she was making, but there was something in her personal life that needed resolution. She felt the need to confront an unresolved aspect of her past to move forward completely. One Sunday afternoon, Carla decided it was time to visit the old neighborhood where she had grown up. The thought of returning to Detroit made her nervous, but she knew she needed to face that past to find peace. With a knot in her stomach, she drove to the area, her thoughts drifting back to a time when life seemed simpler, but also more challenging. Arriving in the neighborhood, Carla parked the car and walked down the street, observing the changes time had brought. Some houses had been renovated, while others were in disrepair. She made her way to the address of her family's old home, which was visibly deteriorated but still standing. As Carla stood in front of the house, A familiar voice called out to her. "Carla, is that you?" She turned to see a woman in the house next door, who seemed to be straining to recognize the visitor. The woman was her old neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, who had been a maternal figure in her life when Carla was a child. "Hi, Mrs. Johnson," Carla said with a hesitant smile. "It's good to see you." Mrs. Johnson smiled with a glimmer in her eyes. "Carla, it's been so long. I can't believe it's you. What brings you back to this neighborhood?" Carla hesitated before responding. "I'm visiting. I wanted to see how things are here and deal with some things from my past." Mrs. Johnson looked at her with understanding. "I understand. The past can be hard to face. Come in, let's talk." They entered Mrs. Johnson's home, which was filled with warmth and a sense of welcome. Carla sat in the living room, surrounded by old furniture and memories from the past. Mrs. Johnson made tea and sat down next to her. "So, Carla," Mrs. Johnson began, "how's your life now? I've heard about your accomplishments, and I'm very proud of you." Carla smiled, touched by Mrs. Johnson's concern. "Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. My life has been quite a journey. I started working at a consulting firm in Chicago, and things have been going well. But sometimes, I still feel like I need to face some things from the past." Mrs. Johnson nodded. "It's natural to feel that way. The past never completely leaves us. Sometimes we need to revisit and find the peace we're looking for." Carla took a deep breath. I've always thought about coming back to try to find answers. I wanted to understand why things were so difficult and maybe find some kind of closure." Mrs. Johnson looked at her with empathy. "Sometimes closure comes not just from understanding what happened, but from accepting what we can't change. What's important is knowing that you've overcome difficulties and become an incredible person." Carla felt relieved hearing those words. "I just miss having a true understanding of some things. I wish I'd had the chance to talk more with my parents to better understand what happened to them." Mrs. Johnson looked at her with a compassionate expression. "Carla, I remember when your family had to move. It was a tough time for everyone. But what you need to remember is that you're strong and you've managed to overcome it all." Carla nodded, absorbing Mrs. Johnson's comforting words. "I know that's true. But having these conversations and revisiting these memories is part of moving forward." The conversation continued, and Mrs. Johnson shared some old stories and memories from Carla's childhood, bringing a smile to her face. As the afternoon went on, Carla began to feel a sense of closure and fulfillment. Before leaving, Carla hugged Mrs. Johnson, thanking her for all the kindness and wisdom. "Thank you for everything, Mrs. Johnson. It meant a lot to me." "You've always been a special young woman, Carla," Mrs. Johnson replied warmly. "Never forget where you came from and how capable you are." With those words echoing in her mind, Carla got back into her car and began the drive back to Chicago. She felt that she had found a new sense of peace and understanding about her past. The visit had been an important step for her, and now she was ready to focus on her future with renewed purpose and confidence. As she arrived home that night, Carla sat down to reflect on what she had learned. Mrs. Johnson's words, combined with her recent professional achievements, gave her a new perspective. She knew she was on the right path and was more determined than ever to face the future with courage and hope. The sun began to set over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Carla sat in her apartment, looking out at the city. The past few weeks had been intense, and a recent visit to Detroit had brought a sense of closure she had long sought. Now, with the past resolved, she was ready to focus on the future. At the office, Carla had received a promotion offer. David called her into his office to discuss the new position and its responsibilities. "Carla, come on in," David said as he saw her approaching the door. She entered and took a seat, observing David's smiling face. "You wanted to see me?" "Yes," David replied, leaning forward. "We have a big new project coming up, and with your recent performance, we'd like to offer you a promotion to project lead." Carla was surprised and excited. "Project lead? That's amazing. But, David, it's a huge responsibility. Am I really ready for this?" David smiled with confidence. "You've already shown more than enough to be here. Your dedication and skill have been evident to all of us. I believe you're more than ready for this new role. And, of course, you'll have the support of the team." Carla smiled, feeling a mix of pride and nervousness. "Thank you so much, David. I'm excited to start this new phase. David extended his hand for a firm handshake. Congratulations, Carla. You truly deserve this. And remember, we're all here to help and support you. With the promotion confirmed, Carla began preparing for her new responsibilities. She was excited, but she knew she would need to adapt quickly to the new role. The following weeks were filled with meetings, strategic planning, and a lot of hard work. One day, while at the office, Carla received an unexpected call. It was from Lisa, her former college friend. "Hey, Carla, how are you?" Lisa asked with a friendly tone. Lisa, I'm doing well, thanks. And you?" "I'm great, thanks. I heard about your promotion and wanted to congratulate you. I thought it'd be nice to catch up a bit." Carla smiled, touched by the kindness. "Thank you so much, Lisa. I'd love to catch up. How about we meet for coffee?" Lisa agreed, and they set up a meeting for the end of the week. When Carla met Lisa at a cozy cafe, there was a genuine smile and a warm hug. "You look fantastic, Carla," Lisa said as she settled in. "Tell me all about this new phase of your life." Carla began to talk about her new role as a project lead, the challenges, and the achievements. Lisa listened attentively, showing genuine interest. "Wow, Carla, you're really killing it," Lisa exclaimed. "It's so inspiring to see how much you've grown and overcome so many challenges." Carla smiled, feeling comfortable sharing her journey. "Thanks, Lisa. I'm still working on finding the balance and adjusting, but I'm really excited about what's ahead." As they chatted, Lisa shared stories about her own career and life, and Carla felt a strong sense of reconnection. There was something comforting about seeing that, despite the different paths they had taken, they could still support and celebrate each other's successes. After coffee, Carla returned home with a renewed sense of purpose. Her conversation with Lisa helped her reflect on her progress and the importance of the connections she had made along the way. She felt grateful to have people like Lisa and Susan in her life who supported and encouraged her. That night, Carla sat on her balcony, looking out at the glowing city below. She felt accomplished and hopeful. The past was resolved, and the future was full of new opportunities and challenges. She knew that no matter what difficulties she might face, she was ready to confront them with the same determination and courage that had guided her so far. Carla picked up her phone and sent a message to Susan. "Just wanted to thank you again for all your support. I'm really excited about what's coming up and grateful to have you by my side." Susan replied quickly, "I'll always be here for you, Carla. Congratulations on the promotion and all you've achieved. Let's keep moving forward together." With a smile on her face, Carla looked at the city lights and felt a deep sense of peace. She was ready for the future, with a heart full of hope and a mind focused on reaching new horizons. Carla's journey was proof that, even in the face of great adversity, inner strength and determination could lead to extraordinary accomplishments. And, as the sun set over Chicago, Carla knew she was just beginning a new and exciting chapter of her life.